9 years after you partook in a failed bank heist in Ludendorff to the tune of a synthwave soundtrack, you're introduced to the coastal beaches of Los Santos by the sound of blaring muted trumpets and a funky, addictive bass line. As you switch characters from Michael to Franklin, the genre of the soundtrack switched with you. This is how the soundtrack of Grand Theft Auto V was made. Grand Theft Auto V was the first of the series to have a consistent score that lasted throughout the whole duration of the game. Other than an intro, most of the music of the previous games were provided by licensed tracks from the in-game radio. The Grand Theft Auto soundtrack was composed by Woody Jackson, who previously scored Red Dead Redemption, and the late great Edgar Froese of Tangerine Dream, with heavy contributions from The Alchemist, Oh No, and DJ Shadow. Woody Jackson and Edgar Froese recorded jam sessions and wrote thematic demo tracks after they were given a brief verbal description of the missions by the directors and music supervisors. They then sent those demo tracks off to The Alchemist and Oh No to be sampled and tweaked by them. DJ Shadow then took all those tracks and assembled them into songs for the missions, into what we associate now as the music of Grand Theft Auto V Volume 2, The Score. But as far as the music for the game was concerned, it was far from over, as it needed to be broken down into stems and then relayered and recorded over to work as a more dynamic score during gameplay. It's not unheard of to have 4 different composers for one medium, but it certainly is uncommon, and it wasn't without its share of concern. Woody Jackson was worried that by having too many cooks in the kitchen, the score risked sounding disjointed. Luckily, that did not end up being the case, as the soundtrack flows seamlessly as one cohesive unit. However, after extensively dissecting it, it's clear that Woody Jackson wrote a majority of the tracks for Trevor. Tangerine Dream was mainly concerned with the character Michael and creating ambient sections, while also providing much of the funk elements that The Alchemist and Oh No would sample later for the missions involving Franklin. The game, the world, the story, and the soundtrack are built around the mechanic of being able to switch between each character at any given time. Because of this, Rockstar decided to avoid telling a traditional linear dramatic story, like GTA 4 or Red Dead Redemption. Instead, Grand Theft Auto V was a character study of 3 different representatives of their respective crime worlds and how they might interact. Michael DeSanta is a white-collar criminal who somewhat resembles the character Tommy Vercetti from the previous games Grand Theft Auto Vice City. Franklin Clinton is a representative of gang crime who is fairly similar to CJ from Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. Trevor Phillips is a homicidal maniac and drug dealer who most likely represents the mindless killing that takes place in the first games. Musically, to represent the diversity of these characters, the game uses various textures associated with specific genres as a form of leitmotif to reinforce the different crime worlds the player is currently involved in. And as the story moves on, the world gets blurred and the music starts to fuse together. But let's explore what exactly those textures are for each character. Michael DeSanta, born Michael Townley, is a retired criminal turned alcoholic and cinephile, who had to come out of retirement after an accidental run-in with the mob boss, Martin Madrazo.
Michael, got a question for you.
What did you pull an architectural, significant, modernist wonder home down the hillside in Vinewood Hills?
Natalia will need a hotel while you finance the rebuild, won't she?
Sure.
Good. And I'm guessing here that the rebuild will be somewhere in the 2.5 million range?
Of course.
Great.
Come on, man. Looks like I'm gonna have to postpone my retirement. Look, I only know one way to make money. I'm gonna have to give an old friend a call.
Michael is an avid fan of 80s action flicks.
Tomorrow we'll try a training montage.
A training what?
Nothing. I was just lost in an 80s movie fantasy.
Yeah, I can see you spend a lot of time there.
As much as I can.
To the point that he often quotes them as a regular form of speech. It's of course his frequent repeating of these movie lines that alerts Trevor of his survival from the events of the prologue.
If he's dead, who's this? Now you're starting to grasp the pertinent questions. Who is this guy using my dead friend's tired-ass movie quotes? With my dead friend's alias? And my dead friend's family? And a house that must have been paid for with my dead friend's stashed millions?
Despite coming out on top, Michael is still haunted by these events and lives much of his life in the past, which is why the music that defines him is the most dated out of the 3. In the brief moment that we see Michael listening to his personal collection of music, he's listening to Phil Collins' I Don't Care Anymore, which is fitting. Aside from being a cultural icon of the 80s, Phil famously created the signature sound of the era from a mishap in the studio, the gated drum effect. The gated drum effect cuts the reverb tail off short, using the sound of the room to add more energy and power to the drums. It's now become a staple of the quintessential sound of the 80s. You'd be forgiven for considering the genre of Michael to be synthwave. However, the more correct term might be retrowave. The major difference being synthwave is a revisionist and modern take on the 80s, while retrowave appeals to a more authentic and accurate representation of that era. Some albums and soundtracks that share similar elements to those associated with Michael are Phil Collins' Face Value and Hello I Must Be Going, Jojo Moroder's Scarface, John Carpenter's Big Trouble in Little China and Escape from New York, and Tangerine Dream's soundtrack for Risky Business. You'll know it's a Michael mission if you hear retro and vintage synths, from pads to rhythmic arpeggios to bells, drums with a gated reverb, usually in the form of toms and fills, or clean and choppy 80s guitar tones. Franklin Clinton is an ex-gangster looking for any opportunity to get out of the hood. After becoming acquainted with Michael and observing the wealth he accumulated for himself, he sought out his guidance to become a higher-achieving career criminal.
What can I do for you?
Shit, I just came by to see if there's something I can help you with. I see you doing well for yourself.
Look, I'm retired.
Ain't you a bit young for the pipe, slippers, and staring at a fucking sunset?
You know, I've been in this game for a lot of years. And I got out alive. That makes me the right age.
But despite his desire to leave the hood, he's still very rooted in the city of Los Santos.
Well, this is a good time.
Fuck you, man!
Hey! For a couple of Midwest stick-up artists, you guys sure have become a pair of whiny West Coast douchebags!
What the fuck is wrong with the West Coast?
Oh, nothing. I love it here. Everyone's so numbed by the sun that if you use a 3-syllable word, they think you're a professor.
Man, fuck you.
Yeah, fuck you, you high and mighty weasel! And you, don't talk down them to these fucking idiots! Hey!
This is reflected in the music by the West Coast hip-hop sound. The Alchemist said he tried to work around Los Santos and make it really feel like the fictional LA that Rockstar was striving for. The genre for Franklin is G-Funk mixed with trip-hop and live funk instrumentals. Albums that share some of the sounds associated with Franklin are Dr. Dre's The Chronic, DJ Shadow's Introducing, Flying Lotus's Los Angeles, Curtis Mayfield's Superfly, Funkadelic's Maggot Brain, Parliament's Funkentelchi vs. the Placebo Syndrome, and NWA's Straight Outta Compton. The score for Franklin's missions often include muted trumpets or saxophones, G-funk synths, Rhodes pianos, funk guitars and bass lines, boom bap rhythm and drums, or tightly compressed funk drums. Trevor Phillips is a deranged killer with a capital D and K.
I asked for a fair day's pay after a fair day's work. Then he kind of got a little angry. So I admit, I kind of got a little angry.
Did you kill him?
What kind of fucking animal do you take me for? No, I didn't kill him.
Oh, fuck.
But I did kidnap his wife.
Oh, no! Oh, shit! What the fuck did you do?
Oh, I just told you what I just did.
Weapons trafficker and drug dealer who resides in the desert areas of Sandy Shores. Unlike Michael or Franklin, he has no desire to give up his life of crime. Instead, he wants to scale it up as Trevor Phillips Enterprises.
What's the end game, man? We had a good thing going without him.
If it's such a good thing, where's my money, huh? Where's my consultancy and my big fat dividend? I want a franchise network, Ron. I want reward cards and merchandise. I want to make gun violence and drug dependency accessible to every man and beast from Hove Beach to Vespucci. I want country clubs and a depressed wife with blonde hair and a hot little secretary who bounces on my boy.
Trevor is an emotional train wreck of a man, and his default emotion is rage. In Trevor's mind, there isn't a problem that can't be solved with violence.
Hey, come on, bro, don't do that.
You're pushing your luck, pal. What was that?
What?
What was that?
Nothing.
Ah! Asshole! Everybody! Assholes!
Any semblance of a conscience he might have had was strangled long ago by the devil on his shoulder that has taken over all his decision-making. Evil voices in his head are represented by unstable synths and noise-like guitar drones. In creating the score for Trevor, composer Woody Jackson started a fictitious desert rock band called Shark Week, with the Mars Volta drummer Dean Tony Parks and Queens of the Stone Age guitarist Michael Schumann. The genre for Trevor is pretty standard desert rock, with experimental synths placed in. If you like the music for Trevor's missions, some albums to check out are Cayuse, Blues for the Red Sun, and Welcome to Sky Valley, Queens of the Stone Age, Songs for the Deaf, and Like Clockwork, Mars Volta's The Bedlam and Goliath, and Karma de Burns' Wild, Wonderful Purgatory. If you hear distorted guitars with a twang and a groove, eerie sinister synths, or energetic rock drums, you'll know that you're playing a Trevor mission. While each character has their own distinct sounds, the soundtrack really comes into its own when it starts mixing them together on group missions. On the mission Caida Libre, with Michael and Trevor, you can hear vintage-style arpeggios and desert rock guitar riffs mixed into the score. In Lamar Down, where Franklin has to bring together a feuding Michael and Trevor to save Lamar, the music for it has elements of all three characters. This also happens in the Merryweather Heist and most missions that include the trio. The seamless mixture of 80s synths, brass instruments, and distorted guitars has become the unmistakable sound of Grand Theft Auto 5.